Welcome back to Rad City Design Studio. I'm Mary, and this week we're diving into a fresh spring and summer harvest. I've got strawberries, grapes, and watermelon lined up for you, so grab your supplies and maybe a plate, and let's make something awesome. I'm starting off with watermelon. I'm making my frame by creating a small loop at the edge of my wire to create a bail. I used a nail polish handle to shape it into a teardrop shape. The loose end of the wire just under that original loop, creating a frame for my watermelon slice. I also created a little round piece to put near the bottom to designate what part of this is rind and what part is fruit. You can play around with the shape here. You can make it more or less round, shorter, wider, whatever you'd like. Once I was satisfied with the shape, I hammered it a bit with my silicone mallet to get the wire to lay as flat as possible. Once I was happy with the shape, I laid my new bezel on this holographic silicone pad. I love these because when you cure resin that's touching one of these holographic pads, it will actually pick up that hollow effect. If you want to try these for yourself, I'll make sure that I put a complete list of tools used in today's project down in the description. Now, unfortunately, I won't be able to seal the back of this piece because if I did, that would make the hollow effect disappear. But luckily, I'm not planning to color the back, so it won't be an issue. I filled the frame with UV resin, then I used my new Let's Resin wireless lamp to cure it for 2 minutes. If you haven't seen this light yet, check out my video from last week. Let's Resin was actually super nice and sent one for me to try, so you can click the card at the top of the screen to find it, or you can find it at the end of this video. I cured this on both sides. To turn this into a watermelon slice, I filled the bottom with some lime green alcohol ink, and I actually added this directly to the cured resin, and then I used a lighter to burn the alcohol away and leave behind the pigment. You can also just let this dry on your own if you prefer. I know some people are afraid of, burning off stuff inside their house. That makes total sense. For the fleshy part of the fruit, I used rosehip alcohol ink. This is one of my favorite colors. All of these are from Picasso alcohol ink, and again, the link will be down in the description. Once both ink colors were dry, I coated the whole piece in UV resin. I really kind of like the color bleed effect where the two colors mix together a little bit, but if you prefer, you could always add your first color, cover that section with resin, and then cure, and then add your second color and then cure again. What's a watermelon slice without a couple of seeds? Now, I didn't have any dark colored seed-shaped rhinestones or beads, so I used a few dark marquee rhinestones. Normally these are for nails, but they work just fine here, and laid them in a fun pattern. You could go traditional here and scatter them around, but of course I wanted to look kind of playful, so I just did kind of a wave of these in a half circle. I did a final cure using the 3-minute setting on the lamp to lock everything in place. And here's another watermelon slice I made that shows off that holographic flash through the ink. These turned out so pretty and I really, really love them. Next up, we're making grapes. Now, I can't be the only person who remembers the gum commercial where the duck keeps asking a bartender for grapes. Anyone else? Anyhow, this was super, super easy. To start, I wrapped my wire around a pair of jump ring forming pliers. Try saying that 10 times fast. And I'm making a few with the larger side here and then a few with the smaller side. If you have those multi-step pliers, you could also make a bunch of different sizes, but this is all I had on hand. So I started by laying out 3 of the larger rings in a row on the silicone pad. Then, to give it a bunched effect, I cut 2 rings in half and laid those 2 on top of that first line of rings and kind of positioned them so they're like little bridges from one ring to the next. Then I placed 3 of the smaller rings under that first line and tried to make sure that they were centered underneath that first layer. I added 2 more of the smaller pieces under that, then 1 to kind of create an upside down triangle shape. Now, what's a bunch of grapes without a grapevine? So with the leftover wire, I created a back and forth filigree sort of situation with little loops that kind of found their way along the path. Then I created 2 loops at each end, one small loop on one end and then a larger one on the other end. And once again, you can really play with this until you're happy. For the loops I made along this wire, I actually used my pliers to kind of misshapen them a little bit to make them look like little leaves. For the loops on each end, I decided which side would be my bail and which would be my crown. And again, you can kind of pre-plan this as you're making it. I just kind of winged it. Once I was happy with everything, I filled all of the circles with resin. Once again, I used my Let's Resin lamp to cure this for 2 minutes. Now that the resin was cured completely, I grabbed my violet colored alcohol ink and dropped a few splashes directly onto the piece. Now you can make this as dark or as light as you like. You can also make it red or green, whatever color grapes you want. And if the color is too dark right out of the bottle, you could mix it with a little bit of white to create kind of like a pastel purple, or you could dilute this with some clean alcohol to lighten the value, but not alter the color. So I sprayed mine a few times with alcohol ink to make it clear and glossy and give like a stained glass effect. Of course, I sealed this with another layer of UV resin, then added a few of these black iridescent rhinestones to give it some glam and make the bunch look even bunchier. I placed them around randomly, but not too randomly, and then I cured this very well for 3 minutes. If you want, you could use some tape to cover the back side of the leaves and fill them with resin as well. I skipped that on this one for now, but I really love how it turned out. It's so cute, and I want to make a million of them. They look super, super intricate, but they're so simple. For the final step, we're making little baby strawberries. I started this design with about 5 inches of wire, but you could even do this directly off the spool. I created a sharp bend at the bottom like I was making a heart, and on the shorter side, I bent the wire around something round to create again like one side of the heart. This bend will determine how big your strawberry is going to be. The closer you make this bend to that original angle at the bottom that we made at the beginning, the smaller the heart's going to be. The further away, the bigger the heart, or the bigger the strawberry will be. I bent the other side down to match the first side, again creating a heart. Again, that's the basic shape I'm going for. And I created a sharp bend on the longer wire right at the spot where the 2 sides met. And I created a sharp upward angle. You don't have to do this, but honestly, I found it's the easiest way to add a bail to my design rather than having to drill through 2 different pieces, which I will show you why here in a moment. I wrapped the extra wire around my bail making pliers and then created a loop at the top. Once again, I used my mallet on both sides of the wire frame to get it to lay as flat as possible. Then I filled in the heart with UV resin. I made sure the surface was completely covered and that the resin was touching all sides of the wire. Then I cured this for 2 minutes, 1 minute on each side. Now, you don't necessarily have to do this, but I did create a calyx, which is apparently what the leafy part of your strawberry is called. I did this by bending my wire back and forth in a zigzag pattern. Now, this does not have to be perfect. In fact, the more organic, the better it's going to look. But you want to create kind of like a fringe that will cover the top part of your strawberry. Or maybe you don't want that. This is your fruit. Make it how you want. So bang, bang. I flattened it, then trimmed away the excess wire. I had already cut this piece of wire from my roll, but again, you could probably do this right off the spool so that you don't have to, waste any excess. I always use these little scraps of wire for whatever. Once again, I placed the calyx on the silicone pad and I filled it with resin and cured again. I once again used rose hip to add a pink hue to my heart shape. Then, instead of using paint or rhinestones, I went a little bit more abstract by using some specks of gold leaf to mimic the seeds. I added a little bit of resin to seal this, and then right before curing, I laid the calyx at the top of the strawberry to give her the crown that she deserves. I cured this for 3 minutes, and voila! These strawberries are as sweet as candy, and they're easy enough to make in bulk. And here's the entire collection. I love how these turned out. They're so pretty. And I think that they would be really good sellers, especially as springtime rolls in. Thank you so much for joining me this week. If you decide to try making your own fruit, I'd love to see, like seriously, I'd be so excited to see this. So come find me on Facebook at Rad City Resin and share your pics. Go make something awesome this week. And as always, stay rad. If you want even more beginner-friendly projects, check out my resin tutorial playlist.